Perfect. So today, our professional education, we have a really in-depth group here today. So we're going to move through this. Welcome, Mark. I see you jumped in here. So our matching senior placement with resources. It's going to take me just a hot minute here to get through all of the wonderful people we've got presenting this morning. We have a panel, Brooke Baker with Legacy Navigation. And I'm going to start with her bio real quick as we run through this. Brooke is a nurse and co-owner of Legacy Navigation. Brooke graduated Boise State University in 2004 as a registered nurse with a degree in health science. We have Jill Berry from Touchmark. Jill is the executive director at Touchmark. Jill came to Touchmark in 2022 with 20 years of experience in senior living. In addition, we have Kathy Lucina, is our other presenter here for Senior Living Advisor. Kathy Lucina is a community outreach specialist for senior living communities and a senior living consultant with Oasis Senior Advisors. This morning, we will also have the wonderful opportunity to, as a moderator, of attorney Mark Wight, from estate planning attorney from Idaho Estate Planning. Mark, Brooke, Jill, and Kathy, please take it away. We're excited to hear what you all have to say to us this morning.
Good morning. I'm just astounded and have no words. That was a lot of stuff. Thank you, Karen. So this is what you people do on a random Thursday morning at what, midnight? Good grief. So happy to be with you. Great to be part of the panel. Got a couple of things that I thought maybe I could lay down, just a place to start. And then knowing this crew, there won't be a lot of dead air. Okay, it's not going to be some downtime. It will be us talking over each other. So hang on. And are the rules that if you have a question, we'll see it in the chat? Is that how we play this? Okay, that's perfect, because then I can ignore it if I want. All right, so let's start with some things that we'd like to get accomplished today in 5 minutes. Now, how much time do we have? Karen, you're muted.
You have a total of 40 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get going.
Actually, I'm sorry. I backed up. We're down to about 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Attorneys can't even introduce themselves in 30 minutes. All right. So a couple things we want to accomplish, or at least touch on if we can. When should somebody start thinking about or considering a different living situation than the one that they are in right now? What are some of the options? These are the overall goals today. What are some of the options? And what are some things that we should think about? And then what are resources available? Because it's great for us to say to an older couple, hey, you really need to look at this. And it's often a non-starter because they don't think there are any resources. They don't think they can pay for it. So those are kind of the three things. So Brooke, Jill, Kathy, weigh in. What are some of the things that an older couple, individual, what should they be thinking about?
Hi, Mark and everybody. This is Jill Berry from Touchmark. I'd be happy to talk for just a minute about when someone should start considering the possibility of whether or not senior living is the right option for them. And one of the things we really look at is a person's how well they're able to accomplish what we call activities of daily living. Some of you may have heard that expression, or ADLs. And so if somebody is having a difficult time managing their medications, that's obviously a huge one. If they're having a difficult time taking care of their personal care needs, like bathing and dressing and just personal hygiene, like brushing teeth and things like that, whether it's a physical challenge that they may be facing or a cognitive challenge that they may be facing, it's at that time where we may think, possibly some additional support might be valuable. The other big factor is socialization, and really trying to provide an opportunity for our seniors to make sure that they have social interaction, because that's so critical, such a really critical factor in someone's quality of life. So those are things we look at. Sometimes we see also, I'll add, we see people that might consider home care and having like a private caregiver or a caregiver with them. And if, let's say the organization that they're working with maybe doesn't have a caregiver available for whatever reason to provide the care that's needed for that individual, and then the individual is really in a tough spot and really can't carry on without that type of support, that's also when we would say, you know what, we would encourage a family or an individual to really consider assisted living or memory care, or even independent living, depending on what type of support that individual might need. So that's kind of the point for us where we start.
Very good. Now, Brooke, how often are people self-aware enough to know that they're having issues with bathing or cooking or feeding? Help us, walk us through that. Is it the individual really that's going to notice all this?
Well, Mark, if they notice, they cover really well and they don't tell anybody, right? And so probably 90% of the time that we run into this in the home is when they've had a decline significant enough that the family members are now saying they need a little bit more help in the home. And to piggyback on what Jill said, there's very little, at least in our avenue of things, very little amount of people that can afford 24-hour private pay and home caregiving, right? And so it makes more sense to go to an assisted living where you can get those kind of cares. But as you said, Mark, it's not the clients themselves that are saying, hey, I need this help. It's usually the family members that are being called day after day saying, okay, they've had a fall, they've had a hospitalization, and then our rehab facilities or hospitals are saying it's not safe for them to go home.
So let me add to that if I can. And Kathy, maybe you can weigh in on this. I'm the son, mom's living by herself. I'm going over to visit, and let me give this scenario. I live out of town and I fly into town. I'm going to go see my mom. So I go over to her house. Kathy, what do I see that I'm going, oh, I think, or can I put it this way, smell that it's time to at least talk about this. Kathy, help us.
And
Oh,
and
there we go.
I think it's probably a scenario where it's happening over time. It's probably not just one visit, but suddenly time and time again. Maybe it's the condition of the home. It might be their physical condition. It could be actually their eating situation where they don't have the energy to make meals and now they're not getting the nutrition they're supposed to be getting. It could be, in addition, conversation with neighbors who now are saying, we've seen your mom trip several times outside, be able to give anecdotal evidence that it might be time to make a change.
Okay, so here's what I've seen and have been taught is you can pull up to the curb, and if you have someone who likes to garden and you can tell that she hasn't been out to the garden for a long time, the stairs are crumbling. And why does she have stairs? My mother had like 12 concrete stairs. She bought this house after Dad passed away. Concrete steps, no handrails. Okay, you go into the house and you can start smelling things like maybe the trash hasn't been taken out, or you open the refrigerator and be careful doing that. Yeah, because you said that they're in a place where maybe they don't have the energy or the interest to feed themselves. Okay, so which one of you wants to take on how we initiate a conversation with our dear mother who made us promise years ago to never put her in a home? Dead silent.
Yeah, I can help with that, Mark. A lot of times, right, families will call us and say, "Hey, I recognize this in my parents," and you say something to them, right? Nobody wants to be the bad guy. And at that time, it's more of a, oftentimes we'll get the doctor involved to say, have you noticed these declines? What does this look like for you? Do you feel that this person is safe to continue to make their own decisions? And then really it's about giving them options and giving them options that ensure their safety regardless of what situation they choose, whether that be, okay, you can remain at home and this is what it looks like. These are the resources that it will take. You can go to assisted living. This is what it looks like. I think a lot of the myths in people's minds are that it's an institution, right? It's the old type of nursing home. And a lot of our elders, believe it or not, don't understand what assisted living looks like or what memory care looks like. It's a scary thing for them. So when we've been telling our parents have been telling us, don't put me in those kinds of places, it's not the freedom and the beautiful setting that the assisted livings have now, right? And so it's a transition in their mindset, and it's just about educating them on that piece.
I think for
So-
us too,
go
Mark,
ahead,
if I
sorry.
may just chime in real quickly, is we really try to uncover what the individual values, because that really helps us understand what's important to them and how we can help them. And I think Brooke hit the nail on the head with, there's this perception of what, we used to be. And, it's so different now, as you all know, it's just such a different world as it relates to what assisted living community or independent living community looks like, and even memory care. So trying to help the individual understand how different it is now, but ultimately really we try to focus on what they value and go from there.
And Mark, one thought, Brooke kind of touched on it. Elders oftentimes have respect for people in authority, like a doctor, where a family member they might discount or not want to hear difficult news from. So at times with my clients, I've recommended that they partner with the doctor and let the doctor be the one that says, you know what, it may be time for you to consider it. And at that point, because it's coming from a place of authority, and it's not a loved one having to give the bad news, it's received a little bit better.
Okay, so I got like 5 things I want to ask. First off, it would be a service to me if you would all quit saying facilities. Could you just throw that out of your vocabulary? Don't use facilities anymore. Community, Jill, I like that word, community. So let me ask this, how much of your time and effort is spent visiting and helping mom to understand something versus visiting with a family and helping them to understand what needs to happen?
Mark, in my experience, it depends on the dynamics and the way it's playing out. I sometimes initially just work with the family, get them to understand it so that they can represent it to their loved one before I actually engage with that individual who might not be in a place of total acceptance yet. So I really kind of go with where everyone is at in the process of all of this discovery.
And Jill, I think it's really important. I heard in your bio, I think I heard this. And so if I didn't, I just made it up and you can pay me for it, okay? It's uncovering values and it's helping the family to show love through this whole thing and acceptance. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think trying to honor the individual's wishes and preferences is always the number one priority. It is difficult when you have a individual that doesn't recognize their limitations. Some do and some don't, or won't admit it, I think sometimes. even if they do recognize it. And so the most important thing we can do is try to be respectful and honor their dignity, and try to work closely with the family and with the individual to the best of our ability.
It took me and my siblings 2.5 years of conversation with mom to find a place outside of the house with all the stairs and the lawn that goes. Anyhow, it's a long story, but it took a long time because we had to go through steps. Kathy, how important, and Jill, how important would it be for the family and mom or dad to go visit some places and just look?
That's probably one of the most important parts of the process, is to see and learn and smell, as you said, and talk, and how are you greeted? How is the experience? I often tell family members, like personal family members and friends, talking with their parents or grandparents, and say, just go. You don't even need, show up unannounced. What is the experience like? How are you treated? Are they ready to, is somebody there ready to talk with you? Or is it, no, they don't have anybody available? That kind of gives you an idea of what you might expect if you're going to move there.
So everybody on this Zoominar, we're going to show up at a Meadow Lake next Thursday about 9:30.
Come on over.
So Kathy, how soon should they go visit these places? Should they wait until, oh, we need something by Monday and it's Friday afternoon?
I've experienced both. There are times when there is an unexpected event that occurs in their lives, and it has to happen that quickly. Though more often than not, it's someone that is recognizing that they simply want to get all of their ducks in a row. And part of that process is being educated about what those steps look like and what's to come. And very frequently, I will encourage, whether it's a family member or the individual, let's just go. There's no commitment. You don't have to sign up to anything, and let's just go see it. Let's see what it looks like, what it feels like, where they're located, how well it suits your lifestyle as you want to live it.
I have a
Karen.
question, Mark, and for the panel. How often does cost come up before they go visit, or a family thinks they should go visit someplace because the resources that someone has? I think it's kind of like if you were to show them or just show up or take them around and they're afraid to get out of the car, like, oh, I can't afford that, or, oh yeah, that might be for somebody else, but that's not for me. At what point, or what do you do in that situation? Or how do you prepare for the resource part? Is it before or after, or where does that come into play?
My response would be it's before, it's after, and it's during. Hold that thought though, because we're gonna try to get to resources, and maybe that will help. I don't have a good answer for that. I think that's a case-by-case basis as well, but give us a minute to get to the resources, and then maybe we can bring that back in and try to fold it in. Jill, Kathy, Brooke, this is a process. This is not like an event. This is a process.
I think kind of like what Kathy said a couple minutes ago is like, it's situational a little bit. I think and like you said, Mark, it does come up before, middle, after, and we have to find the right time to ask those questions, but we definitely want to know if somebody's planned financially for their future. Yeah. And so it's definitely an important part of the discussion.
Okay, let's shift because the time is leaving us so quickly. Okay, panel, let's just take a minute and explain the different options that a family might have or that an individual might have for that next step. There's certainly the in-home care, and that can be a huge thing. Let's step past that for just a minute and look at those other options where we might live if we're not at home. What do you got?
Okay, so I can step in here a little bit, Mark. In our experience, we've got a couple of things. If you're a senior population over the age of 55 generally, we can look at assisted living communities. We can look at skilled nursing communities. And sometimes there's independent senior living that they can move into that's a little bit more supportive than being in their homes alone with in-home caregiving or home health or something like that. There's also for the disabled and younger, there's also residential rehabilitation facilities. And as we just learned this morning, apparently there's this new NeighborWorks program.
Oh, that was
And my-
interesting.
Mark, there's also, to her point, a combination of some of those, or what is known as a continuum of care. So if an individual wants to just know they're only going to have to make this major move once,
Yeah.
they might choose a combination independent living, assisted living, memory care, or some variety of that type of thing.
Okay, so let's maybe peel this back because we got a few minutes, but let's peel this back just a little bit. So, Brooke,
Yes.
talk to us. No, hang on. Let's go over to Jill. Jill, this is right over the plate. It's a soft pitch right over the middle of the plate. Talk to us about independent or senior living for a moment. What does that look like?
Sure. Well, we use the senior living really encompasses here at Touchmark everything. Independent living really focuses on the individual that can still live independently, but might either need or want to take advantage of some services that we provide. Also, if there's a spouse that may have some health issues going on, that's also an opportunity when we see individuals that might consider moving to independent living. And so services and amenities are included in the monthly service fee.
Like what?
Yeah,
Like
things
what?
like dining, transportation, life
Dessert?
enrichment programming, dessert, absolutely. Okay. Delicious dessert every day. Housekeeping services, and along those lines are some of the amenities that are included in independent living. And there's a whole variety. Here at Touchmark, we have beautiful like single family homes to 2-bedroom 2-bath villas, and then also kind of what we call lodge style or apartment homes. And so every setting has different options that they provide.
When Mom finally, she wondered why it took us so long to figure this out. Oh my gosh. When she finally found a place that she really liked, one of the things two things that I enjoyed immensely was the neighbors. She'd go up for breakfast and then she could see who was there and who wasn't there and they were missing, and she could catch up with them. And, just eyes on people that she wasn't getting at home, even though we kids, there's 7 of us. So we called a lot, and then a bunch of grandkids. It wasn't the same as having folks with similar interests that she could see every day. That was a big deal for us, plus the food, because she wouldn't cook for herself. All right, so we've got the independent living. Brooke, you want to take assisted living?
I'm happy to. It's basically assisted living is we always tell our clients, it's more of a independent living on steroids. You still have your freedom, you have your apartment, you can come and go as you please. The difference is that there's somebody there all the time outside your room to help you with whatever you need. So those ADLs that Jill spoke about, medication management, whatever that looks like, they're there to help you with your meals. And basically, we always tell people it's the epitome of retirement. We can't wait to be in an assisted living where somebody will cook our meals and do our laundry and clean our house. And I see that Garth said it's like being on a cruise ship, right? Some people say that. And it's minus the water. It's very true. They have a lot of assisted livings have social game rooms, movie theaters, whatever that looks like, gyms, pools. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a time that our seniors can really retire and still be taken care of with their needs.
There is ice cream on demand, Pepsi for my mom.
Yes. Yes.
It was Pepsi and cable TV and internet. Kathy, do you want to add or subtract to that before you tell us about memory care?
Well, I was gonna kind of segue. So memory care really addresses conditions of dementia, whatever they might be, whether it's coming from Parkinson's or Lewy bodies or Alzheimer's, whatever that is. And it would be within a secured environment. So doors are locked. There is more higher ratio caregiver to resident because there's a higher level of care being given. That said, it's important to know that when it comes to levels of dementia, there's a lot of different ones, and many assisted livings, in fact, all will deal with seniors with dementia. The qualifier typically is as long as they're not an escape risk, so they're going to walk away and not know how to get back, as long as they're not a danger to themselves or others, and as long as their facilities are, their ability for daily activity of life are able to be addressed. So that's typically, people think, oh, I have dementia, I have to go to memory care. That is not the case. They still
Kathy,
can go.
if I can add one thing, I think those are all things that we look at too. The other one we also look at is dignity. And we really want to make sure that we are doing our part to protect the dignity of an individual that may not recognize that the way he or she is communicating is not in line with how his or her peers in that environment are communicating. And so that's one of our jobs, is to make sure that we are looking out for them, even if they don't recognize. And a lot of times the families know, maybe they're in denial, or whatever the reason is, they don't want to take that next step. But yes, those are definitely the things we look at, and also the dignity piece.
Skilled living is often kind of a next level, if you will. I'm not sure we need to talk about that today because we're running out of time. So if you want a discussion on skilled care, who should they talk to? Kathy, can you talk to them about that?
And Brooke, she probably
And
deals.
Brooke, great, thank you. So if you do have questions, talk to them, because let's talk one more thing before we go today. All right, ladies, all this stuff is wonderful, good, just awesome. How do we pay for it? How do we make this happen? I can talk to one right away if I've done my job, and if they have a financial planner and they've done their job. Hopefully they've put some assets away and done some very specific intentional planning, and they can private pay. And that's lovely, wonderful. Most people are not in a position to private pay. Brooke, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Well, we're going to look at like you said, Mark, our hope is always that they've worked with someone like you, or they've planned ahead. It's that 4-letter word that nobody really likes to do because it's never going to happen to us, right? And so we do want to plan ahead as much as we possibly can. And we look at seniors who have set aside money. They've done IRAs, they've done 401ks, and they've done okay as they've retired. However, what a lot of money was, 30 years ago, it doesn't go far now. And so we have to look at the ways to preserve the money for as long as we possibly can, because we know that
stretch it out.
Stretch it out. Yep. And we know that also is helping our communities and those kinds of things when they help when we can help stretch their money. So we often looked at the Medicaid aged and disabled waiver, which helps pay for the cares and assisted livings. And recognizing that, Medicaid doesn't always reimburse as much as they should. but we are always working at preserving as much money as we can on the side so that they can continue to do Medicaid maybe at a facility and then pay the buy-up so that the community can still get their essentially private pay money, and the family can then afford the care.
So let me see if I've got this right. So, and I think about 55% or higher of long-term care costs in this country are paid by Medicaid.
70%.
What's that?
70% now.
70%. Oh my gosh. So that's kind of the backup. By the way, whether you like it or not, you have contributed to that program your whole life, every 2 weeks. Part of your paycheck goes over here.
A precursor is the aged and disabled waiver is really a benefit specifically for seniors. So it's not meant to be an impoverishment program. I know there's a lot of pride and there's a lot of fear and those things surrounding it. But when you can get the care you need at a lesser rate, you have already paid into it. So it's really a benefit for seniors to be on that waiver.
So private pay, there's Medicaid, which often is kind of the last resort. I'm sorry, Brooke, that's kind of how
you don't have to be
plays
sorry.
out.
That's true, as it should be.
Yeah, is there anything in between? Are there other, I'm opening this up, are there other programs available to help people?
Well, there's long-term care policies, but that is something that is very costly if you're doing that at an advanced age and you haven't already established one, years ago. And that will essentially become the payment cycle for paying for an assisted living memory care.
So that is a resource. Just for those that may not be aware, the traditional long-term care policies, if they're still around, are fairly spendy. They reimburse pretty well. There are newer hybrid programs that if you don't have anything, you should look at. And that's with an insurance agent. There's some good stuff. I don't do that kind of stuff, but I've been involved in the conversation. So that's something to look at as well. Thank you very much. Anything else? I can't think, I guess.
Mark, another option that some seniors are doing is, if they're married and just one needs to be in a community, then they're looking at doing HELOCs and reverse mortgages and those things on their home to use the equity in their home, because as Americans, that's where a lot of our investment lies, right? So they're using HELOCs or those things so that they can privately pay for facilities.
So there are some programs. First of all, if they're in an assisted living and it's both, the couple, and they're not going to come back to the house, there's a chunk of cash sitting there. I know it's hard. They're preserving that 4,500 square foot home built in 1953 for the kids that no longer live in Boise.
And don't want the house.
And I've been on the phone with them. Mom, I'm not coming back to anyhow. So that's a concern. And so that's a conversation as well. So the house can be a huge asset for them if we can get their fingers unclenched, because that's a generational thing too, by the way. That's very difficult. All right. Brooke, what resources for exploring, say, Medicaid?
Well, you mean as far as getting on, seeing if it's right for you?
Yes, and then moving to getting some, benefits.
Yeah. So at Legacy Navigation, we offer free consultations all the time, and we can help guide you on what Medicaid applications look like, what the restrictions are, what all the standards and, income and asset limits are. And then we can help guide you on, getting on the waiver. We do the applications and things for people and can get them approved for the waiver. If there's things that, need moving around and those kinds of things, or if people can't afford our services, then we will walk people through the steps all the of getting on the aged and disabled waiver. Right now, Medicaid has just went through a hiring spree. So they have about 30 new employees. And so, it depends on who you talk to on which day and which hour and what their restrictions are and those kinds of things. So we help guide people on how to push through those barriers. But there are a lot of myths out there about Medicaid. And so we just encourage everybody to reach out and ask questions and figure out the best avenue for them and their family.
Okay, very good. Question. Karen, are we about done for time? Okay, I got one thing to kind of help wrap this up a little bit, and I've been remiss. There's the aid and attendance benefit for veterans. It's a VA benefit. It's huge for those that qualify. It's huge. So write that down and keep track of that. Okay, so Karen, coming back, this is a process. Knowing that there are resources and knowing that, you're not going to just send somebody, put them in an Uber and send them over to assisted living and go, hope it works out. It doesn't work that way. So Kathy would sit down with them and Jill and Brooke and go, okay, we know this costs money. It's real money. And we know money doesn't grow on trees. So let's start the process and then we'll visit about what it's going to take and what resources that an individual has. So I guess that's it.
So one important point about that when it comes to the cost factor, Mark, what I do on their behalf costs them nothing. So my resources are free. They can call, they can just ask questions. It can be as complicated as they want it to be.
Yeah.
Very good.
Real quickly, I noticed that Jill said there's Patriot Angels as a veteran organization. They do assist. There is a fee associated with them. And however, what we found most luck with is just calling the veteran service coordinators or the VSOs over in Boise. And when you reach out to them, they will send a VSO out to the client's home and get the DD 214 and all that stuff and tell them the information. And that's a free service.
Okay.
Information.
I think we're done. Thank you, panel. You made me look really good. I appreciate that. I always love when somebody has my back. So thank you. Karen, thanks for having us. Everyone that's still on, have a lovely day.